In the last installment, in which I presented what I considered Uganda's 3 big threats, I received 2 questions among many that came from all of you who watched that video that I want to answer today. The first question I received is this: is Uganda's export work and Uganda's economy hurt by recent actions against some of the country's media houses and the operators of some of the online channels that were arrested, along with opposition and civic activists? That was a question you asked among many. Now, I have looked at the numbers since September 2025. This is just about the time when the national election fever and campaigns were picking up. And then I stretched up to the just ended month of June 2026. Even with the trade disruptions in the Gulf, pushing fuel prices up.
Strait of Hormuz has been the biggest flashpoint between Iran and the United States. Washington wants Iran to open the strategic waterway. No tolls, no restrictions, and no warnings.
The financial burden of the war is being felt here in the States as gas prices tick up every day.
The increase in prices of diesel and petrol expected to push up the cost of living in Kenya mirrors adjustments across the East African community. Here is a look at how other countries are faring in the region. In comparison, in Uganda, a landlocked country dependent on Kenya for its oil, a litre of petrol retails at 188 shillings point 67 cents, 18 shillings less than here in Kenya, while a litre of diesel will cost Ugandans 186.93 cents.
And the very sad episode of Ebola and how it was reported in the international media.
We are following that deadly Ebola outbreak in Central and East Africa. The World Health Organization warning it could be much larger than what is being reported, and there is significant risk of local and regional spread.
At least 80 people are suspected to have died of the virus in Ituri province in the northeast of the Democratic Republic of Congo.
I have seen that Uganda's export growth has kept a steady rise. We have been in this period close to almost $1.4 billion a month worth of exports. Foreign direct investment, or FDI, has kept a healthy pace at United States $3.3 billion. It is only the arrivals at NTV International Airport, when I checked the month of April and the month of May, the numbers had a drop of 7.9, a drop. However, this does not account for other border posts. People kept coming in, people kept spending money in our country. This is partly why I think the shilling has held within a minimum band and no wild swings. Even through elections until now, our exchange rate has remained a little bit stable. Generally, our exports were up 25% in the month of April 2026 than the same month of April in 2025. That is therefore to say that the fundamentals of our economy, things such as inflation, consumption, manufacturing, investment, innovation in some of the enterprises, in agriculture, the agricultural production, the increases we have had, all these are fairly sound. When I spoke at the East African community and I visited the exhibition at Parliament, I saw a number of companies that 10 years ago, when I met their owners, I visited them, 10 years ago they were simply importing steel coils. What I saw today is that they make reinforced steel for construction of bridges, even have had more product range that we didn't have a couple of years ago. Now, investment and innovation, even if it is low, has kept improving, albeit slowly, I should say. These fundamentals tell me that we can withstand pressure long enough to overcome these short-term problems if we keep pulling together on sound policy, we don't change policies rapidly halfway, and we keep timely execution on projects. And both of these values are most under threat today in Uganda: policy and execution. Together, we can lessen the negative impact of bad politics. We can reject corruption and the abuse of power. We can fix many of the areas where we are weak. Emperor Augustus Caesar, who expanded the Roman Empire, he used to say, you must make haste, but slowly. And that sounds a contradiction, because you can't move very fast and at the same time slowly. In Latin, it is festina lente. Festina lente. It means that speed without judgment creates problems. That you need a commander or a leader and forces that are cautious than just being bold yet destructive. It is my message to all Ugandans, especially the leaders, that we should work with speed on things that deny our young people jobs, but at the same time, we must act with reason, with good judgment, with maturity, with wisdom, on a society that is in transition. If you notice, we have a big generational divide in both the economy, SMEs that I see, and in politics. And we got to be cautious to keep together. Now, I have a feeling why you asked about the effect of arrests and the tension from elections on the economy. I know that many of you were circumspect. You didn't want to go into directly asking the question. And that bothers me. You need to speak out without fear, because fear disables people. Fear of favor. Favor is compromise. Because this is your country. You speak out. I suspect the interest that you had in asking is that we should keep Uganda growing, especially in respect to the rule of law and the treatment of opinions that might often offend those in power. I suspect you are saying to me the country should continue to protect the right to dissent by those who oppose our views or our approach to issues. Why do I think you are saying this by your questions without being open? Because the United States dollar's $500 billion economy in 14 years that the president has set a target for us requires, listen to this, at least 35,000 megawatts of electricity to power this growth. That is what the economies with this kind of GDP have in energy generation and usage. Now, if we were building a service economy, you could say, well, go slow on power generation and invest elsewhere. But I tell you, the president and all of us want to rapidly industrialize. We want to convert much of our mineral and agricultural potential into finished high-value goods. To achieve this, we must generate 16 to 20-fold energy increase from the current 2,000 in only 14 years to 35,000 megawatts. We must therefore combine solar, geothermal, gas, hydro, and much more. The kind of economy requires us to triple our cargo transportation capacity on water, on the roads, on rail, and air infrastructure. That kind of economy requires a lot of inward investment at a sectoral level. Now, to generate this kind of energy in the energy sector, for example, we need to invest United States dollars 120 billion in generation, in transmission, and in distribution. Where do you get this money from? You need money from everywhere you can find. In the private sector, worldwide. Through sovereign wealth funds, you borrow worldwide. Through domestic pension and capital markets, you participate there to raise that money. Through finding new sources of FDI. That's the way you get this kind of money in energy that fast, in 14 years. That kind of investment does not come if we are quarreling, or we are lying about each other, or we are stifling civic dissent. I want you to know that it is the negative conversations we have in Uganda that some of the investors hear, they listen, and they choose to go elsewhere. Now, Ugandans to face each other and deal with our differences is what will lessen dissent and bad media. I want you to know that in a true democracy, dissent and bad media never ends. It is only reduced by consistent, good communication from those who hold power. It is reduced by teaching responsible citizenship to the young. Now, to grow management capacity, the one that is necessary for manufacturing, to absorb more talent of our youth, we must keep the country communicating. And it must communicate freely without fear. For example, Uganda just entered a very large financial agreement to purchase aircrafts from Boeing. Boeing is an American company. This is so that we can have more what you call cargo freighters to take cargo to markets and passengers. To return this big investment, we must keep good publicity for Uganda, as well as dignified treatment of those whose opinions offend us. I want you to know that we grow by listening, by talking to each other, and by restraint. I have personally been a subject of insults and lies for a very long time. And I have options. And my options are silence if what they are saying is just rubbish. I ignore it. Or answer if I feel there is some sense in what someone is saying. Or go to court when I feel deeply aggrieved. Sometimes I reach out to convince the liars, because there are many, to open their eyes to the truth. I try to teach them to avoid hate and stereotyping other people simply because they don't like them. It is a choice that I make because I know to keep our country together and avoid unnecessary tension, we need to tone down. Shall we be able to jail all the liars in the country? No, it is not possible. But can we use the law and transparent, dignified methods to hold them accountable? Yes. And I think we should do our best to achieve that. Now, I have also received calls from the East African region, especially from the business community, about the safety of foreign assets in Uganda. I would like to assure all those expressing worry and doubt that Uganda is growing and it will deal with its problems if more and more of your voices stay with the truth and work for a better tomorrow. I had been concerned about capital repatriation, which I suspected would be driven by pre- and post-election fears from the market. But the numbers, I thank God, show that confidence has remained, even with all the trade disruptions we have had in the Middle East and the negative reporting. But one thing I'm unhappy about is that United States dollars 1.17 billion has left the country in this period, mainly through dividend payouts or firms exiting the market or pressures on the shilling or debt servicing. Our data tends to have gaps, so it doesn't allow us to see all the aspects, especially in the informal sector. But I think we might be losing more. Now, for example, when someone sells a company and exits, we don't very quickly know how much and why. Now, my concern is that we could and we should invest a portion of this money in the country instead of repatriation. Can we not keep the mining sector, the oil sector, the banking sector, the telecom sector, real estate construction, where a lot of this money ends leaving the country? Can we not work with those sectors to keep the money in? Can we not provide more opportunities in the economy, this young, growing economy? I am confident the economy will overcome these pressures if we keep working together and hold back this money. All I ask is that we should work together to protect the rule of law and to talk more to each other and use less force. He or she who has power always sets the tone of the conversation for the one who does not. So we can't teach others what we don't practice ourselves. This is one set of questions. The second set of questions I want to answer today is to do with the assessment, my assessment of the movement and my apparent optimism that the movement, the NRM, is reformable. You know, in fact, one person said, Rwabwogo, you are naive to think that the NRM can recover and have its values again. Well, I thank you for this feedback. But I truly believe that anything that is born, anything that grows, that thing will die. But it can be recovered or extended or kept alive by preventive measures from those who know the value of that institution, of that being. You can take enforcement and treatment of offenders in the NRM as tools, but you also need to keep patient and let those who recover with good teaching return to the fold. An organization is a living organism and it should be treated as so. For example, why do we wear masks? Why do we wash hands? Why do we eat the right food or seek to sleep at the right time or sleep early? We do these things because we want to prevent diseases to our bodies. Well, an organization, I need to tell you, can and should do the same. So primary prevention, which in medical terms means addressing the known risk factors that spread disease, for example, the lack of awareness about a disease, that in medical terms can be equated in an organization, in the movement, as the aggressive teaching of our fundamental values and living those values daily. Well, I believe if we decentralize the movement and allow more responsibility, mark that word responsibility, at district level, and hold district leaders accountable, we can teach, we can recover some of the lost ground. Now, one of my favorite lost grounds, which I really cry over, is what we used to call open constructive criticism. That used to help us to walk light. We can recover this straight through accountable leadership, building it from district level, and regular teaching of what it means to live these values of the last 60 years. Even the matter of how we fund our activities in the movement, we should allow members to have a stake, to have some equity by contributing as low as 500 shillings a month or a year, those who have low means. Article 43 of the NRM Constitution actually allows us to do this, but we'll never put it to operation. The money that you put on an account in your district party coffers is money you want to participate in decisions about. You want to know how it is spent. You question how it is used. But money that comes as donations from the top at election time tends to be abused. You know why? Because people see no consequences for this abuse. It is money that comes from outside their area of jurisdiction and thinking, and they don't value it as money that they have raised on their own. Sometimes prevention can fail. So if prevention fails, then treatment should kick in. For a living organism, treatment can mean injections or even amputation. Now, no one likes injections, and worst of all, an amputation. However, a good doctor, let's call it a good leader, should be able to save the rest of the body, to save a life, if the risk of death is high, by an amputation of what has gone wrong. Leaders must take action against those who you teach, who you provide for, and they still continue to infect others with impunity. Those need to be exposed and cut off so that the rest of the body can survive. Now, if treatment develops what the doctors call secondary complications, a good doctor or a good leader must create a large platform, bring in more experienced people, elders, to save the body, in this case, the life of an organization. This is how organizations recover, And I see the NRM in no different in any way if we choose to act now. Now, when both prevention as first level of defense and treatment, second level of defense, have been applied in an organization and its membership, just like a human body, the organization must be allowed full recovery, just like a body recovers, and readmitted when healthy. Now, recovery for leader or a structure of an organization is not found in politics or media or insults or news. It is found in solitude for leaders and introspection. So we can find new ways to grow and keep the organization competitive. Now, one of the influential 19th century Western philosophers said, and I quote, "He who should inspire and lead others must be defended from traveling with souls of other men, from living, breathing, reading, and writing in the daily time-worn yoke of their opinions." Close quote. This is why we have physiotherapy for the body. The physiotherapy for an organization is not to blame others, to wake up and blame everything wrong, but to do the right thing because it is right. Not just blind loyalty when mistakes are made. That is how good leaders develop the moral courage to confront hard decisions. The NRM can do this. I will return later next week on the matter of options available to the movement in this transition period and present what I think leaders can do to study from the rest of the world. I am your friend, Odrek Rwabwogo.